Hey everyone, it's Nikki here with another episode of Sheep Tips with Chic Livestock. So, today we're going to be taking a look at all of the things that I have in my lambing box. So, for most people, lambing time is a very exciting time of the year. Really, it's where you get to see all of the eggs that you have in your basket. That being said, a lot of newer producers, newer shepherds, can feel a little bit intimidated by this if you don't know what you should be having in your lambing box. Again, as I've stated in all my other videos, I am someone who's been in the industry my whole life, and these are just some things that I've been compiling over the years and ideas and improvements that I've been making for myself. If you want to go to and find some great resources for things and an actual paper list of what suggestions I should say, that you should have in your lambing box, you can check out the Alberta Lamb Producers website, ablamb.ca. And you can find some good lambing lists there, as well as on the Canadian Cooperative Wool Growers website. But for today, this is what I have in my own personal lambing box. Alright, so here we go. We're just going to spin this around a wee bit. In this box here, on the top, I have all of my different needles. Just give me half a second here. Oops. Alright, so I have all different sorts of gauges of needles here. From 14 gauge, which I very rarely need. Most of them are 16, 18, 20, and 22 gauge in lengths ranging from ½ inch to 1 inch needles. Over here, I have my rings for banding tails and castrating ram lambs. And open this up. So my top shelf here has all my different tags. I have a very extensive tagging system. So for the last few years, what we've been doing is the different sires for each group of our purebred ewes will get a different color of tag. That way, all I have to do is take one quick look at the color of tag and I can see which lamb is sired by whom. Obviously, I got my tagger. As I've talked about in some of my previous videos, I really like the shear wall tags. And the tagger for them is the same for the farm tag as it would be for the RFID CSIP tags that are mandatory here in Canada. I have my elastrator for docking and castrating. I have a little hand scale. I do have a digital scale that I will show here in a little bit. This one here, though, isn't affected by the cold, so I don't have to worry about the cold draining the batteries. Because I lamb out in the cold winter months, battery drainage is something that is a bit of a problem. So a lot of my stuff I have to keep in the house, not outside here in the lambing box. As you can see, I've got some markers, some pens. These were some 3 mil syringes that I had used for doing estromate last year, and I had boiled them and sterilized them because I'd used so many on my ewes. I didn't want to be having to waste those on a one-time cost. So these are sterilized and ready to reuse. Once I use them again, I'll be disposing of them. I have a scalpel for in case of an emergency. I have just a little ruler if in need. A jackknife with some extra tools on there. Thermometer. Magnet. You never know if you're going to accidentally drop a nail or a screw or anything like that in the barn and have it land in a straw where you can't get it. So instead of having to find that the hard way, when my skid steer runs out during work clean out, I can just find that in the straw with that magnet. Then we'll take this out. In the bottom here, you can see I've got lots of stuff still going on here. I have an easy lamb puller that I got from the wool grower, Canadian Cooperative Wool Growers. It looks like this. It's also known as a lamb snare. Very, very handy if you've got a lamb coming without the legs forward. If it's just the head, you would use that. And again, if we're using it, we're going to sterilize it in between uses. That's why I have the baggie here. Just keep that in there. I have a couple of more lamb snares. These ones are a little bit more effective on larger boned lambs, so they're great for our self-downs. And again, I keep them in plastic baggies before use so that way they're nice and clean. I don't have to worry about infecting you when they get inserted to help pull the lamb. Got some paper if I need to write any kind of notes. Always have extra tags, as you can see. I've got OB gloves, package I hadn't quite used finished from last year, as well as a brand new package ready to go. I have 2 different sizes of manual drench guns. So I've got a 20 mil and a 50 mil. In case of an emergency where I've got something that's cut up, I've got some needles to help stitch them up, as well as some gauze. This scale right here is just a bigger version of the one I talked about a minute ago. This one here goes up to 112 pounds. The other one goes up to 50 pounds. I'm not the most organized person in the world, so it's a little bit of a mess in here, but I can always find what I have. We've got a counter for if we need that for anything. More gauze. We've got some umbilical tape for if we have a ewe that has a prolapse, we can sew her up. Now these guys here are for when I'm milking colostrum out of a ewe. If I need to either put the colostrum into a bottle or if I need to put it into the stomach tuber, I can just milk them into here, make it nice and easy on myself, and then pour it into the bottle or tuber or whatever I have from there. And of course, I've got some different size syringes. Basically, I kind of run anything syringe-wise from 3 mils to 20 mils. And again, this is my lambing box. I do have some extra items in here that wouldn't be specifically for lambing, but for the most part they are. I will do another video at a later date that talks about some of the other equipment that we have on hand. As you can see, we've got lots of different markers for marking nose, marking lambs, anything like that. I have aerosol cans up at the house so that they're not freezing. Here I've got all flex drop tags for when we're tagging the mature ewes or the yearlings. I don't use those personally on lambs, although I know lots of people do. Here I've got a little bit of hand cream. Actually works really good on udders. Occasionally if I've got something with mastitis or just a little bit of an udder issue, I can use this on them, help soften it up. Originally was made for dairy cows, so it works quite well. Again, I've got my All-Flex tagger, a pair of side cutters. If for some reason I need to cut out a tag, or when I'm docking my lambs with the rings, if I get the ring placement incorrect, or if I'm castrating and happen to only get one testicle instead of both of them, I can use the side cutters and just cut that ring off very nice and tidy. Don't have to worry about it hurting the lamb too much, and I can put the second ring on properly. I have vet wrap, again, in case of an emergency if I've got some sort of issue. Got tattoo ink. The tattoo ink actually is what I use on my rams instead of putting a breeding harness on or a breeding marker, I will just rub the roll-on tattoo ink onto the ram's brisket and chest, and then so when he jumps onto the yo, you would actually get the mark on her rump. It's not scourable though, so if you're wanting to salvage your wool, maybe not the best option for you. Here we have a lamb cradle, or actually the packaging for it. I'll show you. It's up on my wall. You can see it right there. Oh, there we go. So I was just using that lamb cradle last night to pick up a newborn lamb, and works very, very well for both picking them up and carrying them, as well as weighing them. Here we have a U-spoon. So that would be used if we have a yo with a vaginal prolapse. We can use that inserted into the vagina and help push that back in there. And then you would attach baler twine or a rope or something like that on the corners here, tie that around her belly, and that would help keep things in place. Here we have a restrainer for a yo if I'm doing things by myself. I don't have Scott around to help me. The head would go into this part here, and then you would actually put the feet through here, use this rope, come across to there, and tie it, and you would have her basically having her front legs right beside on either side of her head, and it would restrain her. All right, that's pretty much all I have here for now. If you give me a minute, I'm going to go into the house and I'll show you what else I have in for my lambing supplies. Hey everyone. So this is part 2 of our lambing supply checklist. I brought some of the extra supplies that I had in the house down to the barn here. So we'll just do a quick run through. Something that I think everyone should know how great it is, honestly, is the kiwi crook. So I did have some old vet wrap actually on this, and it's kind of worn off now, but on the end here, that's a leg crook. We've taped it back, but it does have the option of this little snap where you would crook the or hook the leg through there, and then that would actually hold it in place so that the leg doesn't escape. And then on the other side, it has a neck crook. It's very handy as well in the lambing barn for grabbing lambs if you're processing them or needing to check something, so that you don't have to be crawling over the lambing panels and the jugs. I had also talked about having, we do birth weights on our lambs. So this lamb cradle, which you can get at the wool growers, is really nice. It's easy to sterilize, easy to pick lambs up with. And when it comes to weighing them, this is also the digital scale that I was talking about. So you would just hook it like that, and you would get your reading. Very simple, easy to do with one person. And as I said before, this stays in the house with me. I would only bring this out just when I know that there's going to be some lambs needing to get weights on, because the battery does get drained in these cold temperatures. All right, moving on. I've got some stomach tubing supplies. I like to have a variety of different items at my disposal, because not every situation is going to be the same time to time to time for every yo, every lamb. So I like to have a few different types of stomach tubers and lots of different types of lamb bottles and nipples available, so that if there's a bigger lamb, I can use it a certain one on that. If there's a smaller lamb, a weaker lamb, if I'm going to be doing something in the barn where it's cold versus doing something in the house more as an emergency, there's just these different things that I would take into consideration. So you've probably watched my videos on stomach tubing. You'll recognize this stomach tuber here. The thing that I like about this one is that it's gravity fed. You can do it all pretty much one-handed, nice and easy. The downside to it is that the stomach tube itself gets hard when you're outside in the cold. It would do just fine if you're lambing in warmer temperatures, but again, all of our stuff is getting adjusted for lambing in the winter time. So it's just something we take into consideration and we deal with. So this one here, I would use more in the house, or I would just make sure that I've got this heated up, the tube heated up before I use it. Another small downside is if you've got a smaller lamb, you can see the tip there. It does go down straight into the stomach, but sometimes a smaller lamb, you'll have a little bit of a problem with that. The third thing, and again, these are just very small nitpicky things, but things that I've come across and I'd like to share with you guys. The third thing that makes this a little bit trickier is if you are using it for colostrum that you've milked straight from the ewe. If you're used to that, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say some of the colostrum is very, very thick, almost pasty, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's still good colostrum, but because it's gravity fed, it's not going to come through there as nicely, or if there's any clumps, anything like that, it makes it a little bit more difficult just being gravity fed with no way to actually push the milk through. So if you're having thick colostrum, maybe not the best choice for you. However, if you're using powdered colostrum that you've bought at your local feed store through the vet, or you've got thinner colostrum, whatever like that, this is a good option. Coming over here, these are probably a little bit more standard stomach tubes that most people are used to working with. Again, you can buy these from the wool growers. This here is just a 60 ml syringe. And what would happen is you would just fill that with your colostrum, and you can either leave the plunger in, or you can take the plunger out if you want it gravity fed, or if you want it to be using to actually push it through the tube. And then you're getting to see one of my brand new tubes that I haven't used yet, just due to the fact that my cats actually ate the tube from last year. So this is your standard stomach tube, probably what you're a little bit more familiar with seeing and using. The nice thing about this one is that you can use it with the syringe, or you can use it with this other stomach tube, or the bottle style. Both of them good. They have different reasons you might use them. This one here, you can use it as a gravity fed, so kind of an advantage in some situations. However, if you're using the bottle, you can put milk in there and you can freeze it. So that's kind of a handy thing too. Either way, you would take your tube and again, if you've watched my other videos, you'll have seen how I stomach tube lambs. You would feed that in, and then once you have it into the stomach properly, you would just attach your tube like that, and away you go. One of the little disadvantages to using this tube, if you can see, it has a hole in the bottom there for the milk to come through. It's easier to get chunks out of this one because you have the option of actually pushing the milk through with the bottle squeeze or the syringe, but this tube is a little bit more difficult to clean. Oops. Just give me 1 minute here. All right, moving on. We've got different sorts of bottles and nipples for you to take a look at. This bottle here is really nice, especially once you get lambs going in the bottle. Say you've got a bottle lamb, a bummer lamb. These are really good once they get going. When you're cutting the hole, the hole in the nipple, you can adjust the size and the depth of that. So you can make the hole a little bit bigger, you can make it a little bit smaller. That's your choice. Then, probably a little bit more standard because you can get the bottle from anytime you have pop or anything like that. You have your standard pop bottle. Then, we have these nipples here. And the nice thing about these nipples is that they can attach to any bottle. It doesn't matter. So, I'll just go through the 4 different kinds of nipples that I have here. Your basic Pritchard nipple, I think everyone has seen these guys, has used them. I will say, when you're choosing these kind of nipples, they screw on the bottle nice and easy. You can hear that. They've got a ball in there. Nice and easy to clean. You can adjust when you're cutting that little tip off. You can adjust the size again to get a little bit faster flow, a little bit slower flow. When you're choosing these nipples, be careful. There's two different types out there. There's this one here. It's a darker red, and it's a more rubbery type material, more silicone. That's the better type of, I grew up calling these Pritchard nipples. I think that was the brand back then. The other type that's out there is more of a plasticky feel to it. They're lower quality. Honestly, they're just not the greatest. Again, if you have nothing else, they're fine to work with, but they just don't hold up as well, and you don't get the same use out of them. The lambs won't use them quite as well. This here is another nipple that I have. Fits onto a bottle. This one here is kind of cool because you can use it with a milk bucket as well as on a bottle. Again, it's that nice, real latexy silicone feel to it. Very simple to clean. Cut the holes in the end there. I've got this one here. Again, this is a multi-purpose. Actually, 3 out of the 4 of these types of nipples are multi-purpose. You can use them on a bottle, or you can use them in a lamb bucket, depending on the style of the milk bucket. This is a bit bigger, doesn't work with smaller lambs, so you'd want to make sure that you've got a bigger, stronger lamb. It's a thicker material as well. Sometimes it takes them a little bit more time to get on to the idea of sucking on this nipple. And this one here, they call them a Capri Nipple. All of these, by the way, you can buy through Wool Growers. You can look through their catalog, go to wool.ca, and you can see all of these items that I'm talking about. This one here, you would actually fit it over, kind of over and into your bottle. Disadvantage to this one is it has a pre-made hole, so it's not as good if you've got a lamb that's a very fast sucker. By that I mean it's drinking very, very fast. You would run into a little bit more problems, possibly having them bloat. But if you've got a lamb that's a little bit more slower, a little bit more methodical, this is a good option as well. And it does fit into lamb milk buckets as well. All right, moving right along. Again, this is just kind of adding on to what I had talked about earlier in this video, the part 1, shall we call it, where we're going through the lambing box, seeing the items that I have in here, giving you ideas to keep your own lamb box stocked. We've got shop towels. This is a good option for drying off lambs, as well as drying your hands off if you've been lambing without gloves or really for any reason. Just a nice thicker option than paper towel. Having spare towels in the lambing barn is vital. You can be drying your lambs off, you can be drying yourself off with these. Hands down, one of the things I go through the most of, honestly, because we're always needing these just extra towels. So when you're doing a house clean and a purge and getting rid of a whole bunch of your bedding and your towels, don't throw them away. Either keep them for yourself for lambing or find a sheep farmer in need. Next up is also repurposing something around your house that you probably either donate or throw out. This is actually a lamb blanket. Lammy jammies, so to speak. What I've done is taken an old sweater, cut the sleeve off, then in the cuff I just make a little slit there. I cut holes just down from the neck, make a little star shape there. That would be for the front legs. And then I angle it about an inch or so back from where those front leg holes would be. As you can see, I cut it on an angle. And that way, whether it's a ewe lamb or a ram lamb that I'm using this on, you would have the navel just barely covered. But if it's a ram lamb, you wouldn't be covering the penis. So when they pee, they wouldn't be getting the blanket wet. And with the shape of it, it goes and covers right over the tail head. at the end of the video, I'll show you the first lamb of my season here and her sporting her lammy jammies. All right, we're getting close to the end. Lambing records. I highly suggest finding a lambing book. Some people, if you can't find a lambing book specifically for sheep, use a calving book and just convert it. I know lots of people are using spreadsheets and working with those, keeping track of all of your information, but having a hard copy honestly is invaluable to me. Again, I will reiterate, this is how we run our operation. These are the little things that I've picked up, but I am lost if I don't have my lambing book ready to go doing a hard copy. And it does save you if something happens and you lose all of your other records on your computer, on your phone, whatever like that. Having a hard copy. I'll just give you a quick look of what's in here. So we've got the ewe number, the breed, the sire, date lambed, sex, lamb ID, and then any remarks. We do birth weights, and we also do rating maternal skills, anything like that. So I would write that all in there. Flashlights for night checks, also a good thing to have. All right, we're just about there. I will say that it's very important to have a good relationship with your vet. For us, I have a good relationship, a knowledgeable relationship with my vet. Very rarely do I need to call them with questions. Again, I've just been doing this for so long, but I don't know everything. I don't, and I didn't go to vet school. So here I have our flock health protocols, and in there I am constantly referring to different stuff. I've also gone and printed off valuable resources and added in here. So having these in clear sheets and kept in the barn, I have protocols if I've got some sort of sickness, if there's something I'm not used to. Again, your vet will probably give you different stuff, but it's something very handy to have in your barn right at hand. As soon as you see if there's a sick animal, if there's a problem and you don't know how to handle it, or just to refresh yourself. Again, we're human, we make mistakes, and so being able to look back on that and stuff that the vet has given you is a great thing. Last but not least, if you're like myself and our operation here, you probably have a significant other that is going to be helping you out at lambing time. For me, my husband Scott is fantastic, and he does the night checks, and then I take over during the day. Here we go. Having a whiteboard, if there is lambs born through the night and you're wanting to keep track, or if there's any issues during the day. Basically, what I'm saying is if you have multiple people coming into your lambing barn, it's really nice to have a whiteboard like this, where you can write notes down and you don't have to worry about missing information. You've got a record of it. You can clean it off when you're done with that group or whatever like that. Just very handy to have. All right, so that is all I've got in my stuff right now, but I will give you a quick glimpse at my lamb here sporting her lammy jammies. I guess that's something else that I should say is I would highly recommend having a heat lamp in your lambing barn, especially when it's as cold as it has been here in Alberta and here in Canada this year, in this winter so far. That heat lamp can quite literally mean the difference between life and death for some of these lambs being born. Something else that I forgot to mention that's in our lambing box, and I would kick myself if I forgot to mention this. It is actually a bulb syringe to use on lambs if you're having problems with mucus in their nose right after they're born. This is a great tool to have. Again, I just got this one picked up to replace one of my old ones. And it's an aspirator and irrigation, so it's multi-purpose. You would just squeeze the end and help draw the mucus out of the nostrils and help clear out their airway.